This slide here just shows revenue. If you go through it, you'll notice that we did see a decline in the last fiscal year. Part of it was trying to reduce some of our expenses, and I apologize we don't have that included in this presentation. But we try and run a lean operation. I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that we do generate over $200,000 in revenue per year. And that's a lot of just trying to charge what we need to charge to operate our facility. So it's a lot of $5 charges here and there. Adult hockey typically pays a premium. We're kind of on the higher end of the scale, which we accept. It's just part of what it takes to run an ice rink. So I think overall we believe with the expansion of the facility that we would see a nice increase in our cash flow. You're looking at it's not quite double, probably about a 75% increase the next year. And a lot of that is just coming from expanding hours and being able to have more people on the ice. And then also being able to host, they call them bantam and midgets, which would be the equivalent of JV and varsity hockey. We currently don't host tournaments for those kids. If we could host those tournaments, it adds to our revenue, not to mention the effect it has for the city. So we're optimistic that with this change, it would change our abilities to increase our cash flow, and which is part of why we believe we would be able to manage the debt obligation that we'd be looking at as part of the equation. So kind of a general economic impact, and I don't know if Mr. Peterson would like to jump in on some of this part. But we believe beyond just the benefit for the kids and for our user base, there's certainly a lot of positive aspects for the local economy. Just the effect the dollars have, bringing outside dollars, the dollars just getting people active in the community. So they're all positive aspects for our facility. Steve, would you like to talk about it a little bit? I'm going to hand this off to Steve Peterson.
Thank you.
Hello, Steve.
Hello. I've been associated with the rink for about 10 years. This is the third update of an economic impact assessment I've done. And what I've discovered is what you see up on the slide there. The ice rink here is a vibrant niche cottage industry in the off-peak recreation season with high marginal benefits to the Moscow economy. It has close ties to the University of Idaho and Washington State University. I personally have talked to 10 of my students that have said that they stayed at the University of Idaho, at least 10 to 20, that they stayed at the University of Idaho because of the ice rink. And I think it's an important source for future retention and recruiting of students both at the U of I and at WSU. Every 2 students that attend the University of Idaho in the long run create 1 job in the Moscow economy. And so I think that's an important source of potential economic activity. It brings all of these impacts that I'm about to show you is from new monies coming into Moscow. So these are net new funds coming into Moscow. And it represents athletics and their families with strong, intense preferences, and I think this room is a good example of those intense preferences. People with intense preferences tend to spend lots of money, and they have whether they want to or not.
The parents spend some money when they take these kids to these things.
Strong economic impacts. So this is what I found. Currently, this little 3-quarter rink creates 11 permanent jobs in the Moscow economy, supports a payroll of about $222,000, and supports total state and local taxes of about $39,000. We estimate in the future, and I think these are very conservative, the total permanent jobs in the community would be 37, just under 40, a payroll of nearly $750,000. And state and local taxes of about $156,000. So it'll have a substantial impact to the regional economy. I think it'll complement the other strengths of Moscow, particularly bringing visitors and spending here in the off-peak season. Then I estimated what the construction impacts would be. This would be over 1 year, create about 45 jobs $1.37 million in payroll and about $104,000 in tax contribution. So I think that this will contribute to the livability of Moscow, bring visitors and spending here in the off-peak season, create jobs, and complement our other strengths in the community. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson.
Economic risk.
We good?
What we didn't do is you introduced Steve, but one of our counselors up here didn't know Steve's name. Steve from the University of Idaho, Steve Peterson, our local economist on all these wonderful numbers.
So this is our grand finale. Originally, we had a collage of different shots, and I switched it to this shot because I really think this is the image I wanted to leave the council with, is that our facility is really a collection of adults who had a dream, had a vision, and they're doing it for the kids. And I think this really, a lot of the people in this picture, I believe, are in this room tonight. They put in a lot of work making our youth program successful. And I think that's true about our board and the rest of our user groups, is they're just people with a lot of passion, a lot of desire, and they make something very positive happen for this community. And so we're just trying to take it to the next step. I appreciate the council and Mayor Lambert and city staff's time and the folks that came tonight to support us, and especially our front gallery here. I know it's hard to sit still for a long period of time, especially when Pokemon Go's very popular these days. So
it's a gym here. It's a gym. It's a gym.
It's a gym.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. I'm way.
Go ahead, continue,
I'm way out of
Tony.
I threw that out. It's way out of my comfort level. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to everybody for giving us the time. I'm happy to answer any questions. But the biggest thing is we're excited to work with the city. We're not trying to put anybody in an awkward position. Certainly, there's other opportunities for this money. We just happen to feel very strongly that we have a good cause, and we're willing to work with this group in any way we can to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Tony, you did a wonderful presentation. Thank you for taking the time to be very adequate and integral on all your numbers and facts and figures and all the different things that go with the ice rink. And I got to share with you, the day the new scoreboard was there, I got a chance to drop the puck, and I will tell you so much. I was so happy that somebody put a heater in like 2 days before I was there, because I found this one spot that is actually warm there, and that's where I stood as long as I possibly could, because it felt so good. But, I've been to the ice rink extravaganzas that you folks have had, and you talked about being part of the Palouse, and you're absolutely right, because I've been to those things, 300-400 people there, and there's people from Pullman and all around their surrounding communities that it's a big deal for them. Personally, as a mayor, the group, I don't know of a group that has worked any harder to do something over the years to make things happen. And I know some of those numbers that you had up there, Tony, on the new numbers were reflective of the things you can do on a full rink rather than a three-quarters rink, because you can't have competition, you can't have tournaments here because of the size of it, and so that's where you're justifying those additional numbers that came up on that spreadsheet that you showed us. I'm sure the council is going to have a ton of questions. There's a couple of more people that I'd like to hear talk that I've got in mind that I want to listen to. And you mentioned one number. You mentioned that with the $1 million that the city would give, and as with the other monies that you have, you'd still have to have 72% funding. I know Bob Stout's in the audience, and he is the driver of getting this money, so I'd like to hear some comments from him, as well as both of our county commissioners on their feel for it, because of course it's on county property. And then I'm going to open it up for the council to ask anybody questions. So Bob, if you would please introduce yourself to us all.
Thank you. Bob Stout. I live in 208 South 3rd in Garfield, Washington. I think this represents what we can do from a momentum standpoint. So the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, we've been out talking to donors, and prospects, business people within the community and outside the community, and a lot of foundations and granting opportunities, and they kind of need to know that it's real, and I think that's from a fundraising standpoint. I think the city's buy-in with this from this great Hamilton Lowe's Fund would help me, help us to get some momentum from a fundraising standpoint, that we have people behind us in this community. I think that's where your all decision kind of represents that for us to move forward. So, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic because I've met with a lot of people that are donors and prospects, and they love this project, and I think they're ready to go on it. I think once we get to that point to where we can really push this forward and know we have the funds in place, I think we're, you know, I'm optimistic because as a fundraiser, you have to be, or you're not going to last long in this business.
Well, if you're not optimistic, we got the wrong guy, right?
Exactly. So, but this project resonates with donors that I meet with, and I think a lot of it you see here with the kids and the youth activities, and so it's been a fun project for me to work on. I think we've just got started now, and I think we're ready to make this final push and kind of to really close some of these larger gifts.
Okay, we've got both our county commissioners, Dick Walther and Dave McGraw. You guys want to make a few comments? You know, and one of the reasons, folks, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing. We have this on county property, and the council, of course, with the Hamilton funds, they're very frugal, not only frugal, but they want to be able to spend them and use them for the right in the spirit of what that fund was set up for. And so that's a big deal for everybody up here, too. So, Dave, you want to introduce
Thank you, Mr.
yourself,
Mayor,
sir?
Council. First of all, former Commissioner Storshine, it's great to see you, my friend. Good to see you here. So, how many people in this room are under the age of 18? Okay. About 5 years ago, every month we have our Director of Youth Probation Services at Latah County gives us a report to the commissioners. Commissioner Storshine and I were sitting there, and our director at the time made mention of the fact that the crime rate in Latah County amongst youth had been dropping. And we said, well, what do you suppose is causing that? He says, well, he thought for a minute, and he said, well, I have no scientific background to back this up or anything, but he says, I've got to tell you, we started to see that drop in crime start to happen right about the time that ice rink got built. So I think I think that speaks volumes about what this thing does. Typically, the crime rate amongst youth in Latah County anyway it's very low in the summer, and the crime rate amongst youth goes up in the winter. That has leveled off and has started to drop down in the last several years this ice rink has been here. And that's mainly because kids have a lot of things to do in Moscow in the summertime. They got the ball fields, they got bike trails, was mentioned, and a bunch of other stuff like that. So I just don't see how you can go wrong funding this thing. We are the landlords of the property out there. Our role in this, I think Commissioner Storshine was on board when we did the lease. I think we did the very best we could to do a very, very favorable lease to the ice rink people so that they could get their fundraising and make the economics of this whole thing work out. All these people raise their hands who aren't quite 18. They'll be voting in a couple of years, so when you think about this.
So this was a 50-year lease you're talking about, Dave?
This was a 50-year lease we'd put up with them. Of course, 5 years of that's gone now. In their fundraising efforts, it's been taking them a little while. So, any questions you have? I would. I'm one commissioner of three, of course, and we'd have to talk about it. But whatever commissioners are here in 40 years, or whenever they want to start talking about the renewal of the lease, that will come into play. So,
Commissioner Wallace, would you like to comment, or are you good with things? Okay, well, thank you, Dave. You very well may have a question to ask of you, but you know, I was never involved in ICE because there was none of that sort of thing when I was a younger guy or as a coach. I coached baseball for 9 years, and I remember as a coach, and I'd show up at home with 6 or 7 new baseball bats and about 30 new balls, and a few new mitts. My wife would say, well, because I had 2 boys, and she knew they weren't for just those boys because they're all different sized bats and stuff. And that's what you do as a coach. You're buying equipment, you're buying stuff, and you invest. And I had all kinds of things. And I don't even know if I shared with her all the different stuff I bought. They'd just show up. Of course, I didn't fool her. She'd spot them eventually because she could flush it out of me. But so I know as a parent, what that was like, and I wanted my boys to stay busy. I wanted to know where my 2 boys were at, and now I got 5 grandchildren, and those 2 boys are wanting to know where their kids are. And these guys' age and somewhat younger, and so that's a big deal, youth sports to me. With that, I'm going to open up to council for questions for anybody, whether it be Tony or Mark, or Steve Peterson, Dave McGraw, Bob Stout. So, Walter.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony, as has been mentioned, this request is for Hamilton funds. And in what's in our packet, I can't really tell what the true mix of youth, and let's call it 18 and under, versus other users is. I don't know, it's up to the council, of course, I don't know that we're in a position tonight with other questions we may have to make a motion and a move on this, but if it does continue on, and I'm a fan, I'll admit that, I would like to see a comprehensive list or analysis of users now and projected by age. You've got some numbers in the packet, but you mentioned some youth, female youth groups that didn't appear to be in the data that was in here. If we could get a comprehensive age analysis of who's using the rink now, whether it's those that are with their families when they come to open skate or whatever, you can qualify it as much as you need to in terms of estimate and the others that you know.
Right.
And then extrapolate that into a full-size rink number. I would appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor.
Hang on a second, John. Catherine had a question.
I'm going
and
to
then I'll
follow
come
up.
back
Thank
to
you for
John.
presenting. It's a great
She
thing.
asked about 10 minutes ago.
My question has to do with page 37 in the packet, and it has to do with where all the present ice rinks are. I don't know if you have that one.
Yeah, actually.
And I'm connecting it to tournaments. And my question, and I concur with Walter really in terms of there's so much to take in. There's a lot of information, but it just, I feel like I need a little more. And so having a greater understanding of the tournaments and that flow of people that move, because there are quite a few large rinks around the area, and then what that means as, you know, because you have the projection, the economic projection of people that come to town. So does that mean the creation of tournaments and how that changes things? So maybe could that be part of the business plan as well, the tournament piece?
Well, most age levels try and host one tournament a year,
Oh.
and right now we do 3. The 3 youngest groups. So what we would anticipate happening is adding a tournament for the Bantams, the JV team, and the varsity team. I imagine the varsity team may schedule some games because they play more of a normal schedule instead of just tournaments. You know, teams are traveling. I believe there's a team in Coeur d'Alene. I know a lot of the teams are based out of Canada, so they may do less of a tournament and more just having home games. But the anticipation would be to add 2 tournaments. I know the varsity team went to Missoula right around, I believe it was New Year's weekend, and they were there for a multi-day tournament. So I think we'd probably model something similar to that.
Okay.
So we're looking at probably adding the 2 in addition to the 3 we currently do.
Okay. And just to follow up, so that actually kind of folds into capacity. So when you showed the bar graphs and you had, they had up to 70 kids. So what are you thinking as capacity for especially, the way the Hamilton mission is written with youth, that younger group? How do you see that changing, especially when you know the amount of kids in the school district or Lake Tahoe County-wide, and then to kind of go further with that, to deal with kids that can't afford it, and then can you have kids that don't have parents skate?